Alright, I'm going to try to make a video here. I'm sitting here working on my RSV4. Currently I'm gearing it. I'm going one down in the front, one in the up, in the back. The reason I'm doing that is to gain a little bit of speed. The gearing is very tall, especially first gear. The second gear is extremely tall. I end up having to shift into first gear a lot on slow speed corners, and there's a lot of them where I live just to get to my house. So changing gearing, see if that makes the bike a little easier to ride around town. This thing's such a cool bike. It's got so much history and pedigree. I've been looking at this bike for 10 years, watching videos on it, and reading articles about it, everything I could find online. The 2016 and up, they did an amazing job on this bike. They redesigned the engine, really just making it more efficient, changed a lot of materials, a lot of coatings internally to it, lightened it up. The other thing is what's really cool about the 16 and up, Aprilia went and copied the acro header. So the acro header, if you install on this bike, really doesn't make any more power. The difference is it is titanium, so it's a little bit lighter. The cost versus performance for me is just not there. Plus, I don't really feel like taking apart pretty much a brand new bike if I don't have to. So I'd rather not do that. I got these cheap sliders for 30 bucks. I saw a YouTuber put them on. He said nice things about it. Looking forward to seeing how they last. As far as gearing, I'm switching this gearing to a 15 front 2 sprocket. As you can see, it's used. I've used this before with the stock rear 41 tooth. I'm going to go to a 42. Hopefully gain a little bit of speed and make the bike a little easier to ride around at the speeds I usually ride around town and so on and so forth. Another really cool thing about the RSV4 is that the engine is able to be adjusted in the frame. So you can move from here, as you can see, you can move the engine up just by taking this collet, flipping it, and moving it, of course, keeping the engine supported and even jacked to move it up. How does that help you? Well, if you move the engine up, you have a higher center of gravity. The lower engine is the lower center of gravity. Is that enough to make a difference? Well, Aprilia put it in there. They know how to build race bikes. Who am I to argue? Swing arm as well. You can move this up, and one of the positions, I don't know if this is the position or the other way, extends the swing arm. I think this is the lower position. It actually gives you a little more length in the swing arm, a little more stability. For street riding, I would say, but maybe on a track or a real tight track, might be a good idea to adjust that. One of my favorite mods on this bike is this tail tidy. This is NRC tail tidy. It works really well. It's completely plug and play. It fit absolutely beautiful. The plate's adjustable every which way. I have, as far as modifications, I have the Graves titanium slip-on. It sounds really good. It's not too loud, but it definitely makes the bike sound amazing. Interesting thing about the RSV4, if you look here, you see these plastic covers right here. And there's a plastic cover on the other side. These plastic covers are not there really to protect the bike if it goes down. They're for noise. Part of the emission standards is to reduce as much noise as possible. So besides the exhaust noise, they work on trying to cover the engine so it's a little bit quieter. The clutch is actually pretty loud on this bike, and it's a wet clutch. Another thing about the RR, as you can see, this looks like carbon fiber, but it's actually not. It's just plastic that looks like carbon. They did it here, they did it on the other side, and they did it on the mud guard in the front. It looks actually pretty good, but it's not real carbon fiber. so I feel like it's cheesy. But what they didn't do, and it doesn't make any sense, is just put a regular plastic mudguard in the back. So I don't know why they did that, but they did that. The RR, difference between RF and RR, besides the suspension and the decals, is this part, especially on the 18 like mine, this is polished. This is not polished, as you can see. It's got a rough texture. Doesn't really bother me. I don't really care. I don't really go for carbon fiber. If I want to reduce weight on the bike, I'll just try to work on myself and lose a couple of pounds. I can lose weight quicker there, and it's much healthier than trying to spend money on a bunch of carbon fiber. The other thing about the RSV4 in terms of setting up the suspension, the RR, because of the sack suspension, actually bottoms out 10 millimeters from the bottom of the stanchion. So 10 millimeters from here, like right here, is really where bottom out is. Try to point it right there, where my nail is. That's really where bottom out is. So on other bikes that have like the Showa or the Oleans, bottom out is bottom out right at the stanchion. So when you're setting up sag in the front forks, if you don't have a buddy and you can't really measure, put a zip tie in, and depending on your shock, if you have a sack shock, then you need a total of 22 millimeters from this right here, that will be measured here to here, for bottom out on the RSV4. On suspension like the Showa, you need 12 millimeters. The reason being, on the RSV4, it's 10 millimeters plus an additional 12 millimeters of margin of safety. And here, 12 millimeters margin of safety, because bottom is actually where the stanchion is. As you can see, this is perfectly set up for my weight. I'll probably turn it up just a little bit, 1 or 2 more clicks of preload, and see how that works out. RSV4 comes with really heavy front springs. I have absolutely all the preload backed out. And me riding normally, not overly aggressive, let me show you where my zip tie is on the RSV4. This is normal riding. As you can tell, I have a lot of room. When I really get into hard braking, the zip tie does go down. And believe it or not, I'm probably a 1/2 turn, not a full turn, just a half turn of preload from absolutely zero to make it perfect for my weight. And I'm 220 pounds with gear. So that's a pretty heavy spring in the front. The rear is pretty good, really easy to set up. My sag on the front's about 38. My sag in the rear is about 33. I did a remote tuning session with Dave Moss, and I highly recommend you do that if you want to do it. Well, until next time, thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.